All eyes on you, Mr. 10K.
Fuck yeah. What do you want to talk about? You want to talk about spirituality? Would you like to talk about sex? Or would you like to talk about happiness?
We can talk about spirituality. As I was thinking
Fuck
about it,
yes.
I have more, more questions than answers when it comes to spirituality. So I might turn it around and ask your opinion a little bit and just have a bit of a discussion. Um, yeah, I don't have any answers. I'm like the last person with spirituality answers.
I got all the answers to spirituality.
Perfect.
Bro, I feel like that's, oh no, okay, like being serious, this is something that I think about sometimes, and I know you do too. Like, I feel like there are two branches that you can go down with spirituality, right? You can go down what people might call almost like the spiritual ego route, where you're like, hey, I'm starting to figure out the answers. I have the solution to enlightenment. I have the solution to happiness. Please send me like 4 easy payments of $29.99 in the post, and I will send you like happiness, right? And Phil
Yeah.
Collins, one of my favorite artists, one of my favorite musicians, has a song about this, um, where he starts talking about, fuck, I can't remember what the goddamn song is, but it's about like Jesus. Oh, Jesus, he knows me. Yeah, I think it's just called that. And he literally is talking about how people in the 80s, like evangelicists, used to like sell their monopoly on like spirituality and truth. And they'd be like, I have all the answers. If you just pay me a little bit, I'll give you those answers. So that's like one root of spirituality, is like the person who says, I know everything. That's how you start a cult. And then there's the other, which is sort of where we've gone down, which is the more like Seneca route, where everything you learn, or the more you learn, you're like, I know enough to know that I know nothing. It's almost like the more you go down this spiritual pathway, there's more questions than answers. And you just start figuring out, holy shit, I don't know anything. And that's like a very big part of like stoicism as well and stuff like that. So I guess to sum all of that up, what is the meaning of life?
Yeah, I like Byron Katie's way of talking about spirituality, you know. She's just like, get out of here with your big spirituality. I don't know what spirituality is. I just know what hurts and doesn't hurt. It's like the
Yeah.
simplest way to put it. But yeah, I think you're right. It's like the Dunning-Kruger effect. The more you know, the more questions you have. So essentially, the more you know, the less you know, or the more you know that you don't know.
Yeah, man.
But
Let's
yeah,
talk a
it's
little less. No,
mhm.
you go, you go, you go.
Oh yeah, the thing you were talking about with like the sort of messianic tendency that people get
Yeah.
initially. And I've, I've also felt this too, in the beginning, to be honest. But like, yeah, particularly with psychedelics, once you initially sort of break out and you're seeing all this stuff for the first time, it's like, wow, yeah, it really does kind of come into your ego and you sort of start to feel like you have your third eye open and other people don't. And yeah, it's very easy to see how people go down the first path you were talking about.
The ego path of like,
Hmm.
I figured out all the answers. I know the
Hmm.
meaning of life. Like, I've done some psychedelics, and so therefore I'm smarter than everybody else. Yeah. I'm trying to
Yeah.
find a little meme that I'll see if I can find it, and I'll share it on the screen if I do. I sent this to Imogen recently, but yeah, you start to go down this little pathway of like arrogance, I guess. Here we go. Here we go. I found it. I'll share it on the screen. So for everyone who might be listening and not watching, it's this hippie guy with a big beard, and he's holding a stick, and he goes, "Yes, I finally killed my ego. Now I'm better than everyone else." And there is a little bit of that tendency. I don't know if you had that, man, but when
Did
I
you feel it
first,
within yourself?
bro, yeah, like after I did, I don't know, maybe after I did a decent dose of psychedelics, because I slowly worked my way up. And by the way, none of what we're talking about here is us saying like go out and try psychedelics. But at the same time, holy fuck, psychedelics are amazing for me. But I slowly ramped up over a period of like a year because I was so scared. But after I did a couple of big doses, yeah, there was this feeling of like walking around a little bit and being like, wow, all of these people are trapped in the matrix. They've never tried psychedelics. They're just going about their life, following all the rules, and they've never questioned any of that. And I have, so therefore I know something they don't know. And I feel like the same thing can happen with just self improvement. As you start to discover certain things, like, oh, wow, I do have the power to change. If I'm unhappy with something, I can just take action to improve it. Achieving goals really is just setting a goal, showing up every day and being consistent and then just waiting for the achievement to come. Wow, anyone can achieve any goal. When you start realizing these things, there can be a little bit of a like, I'm better than other people, like starts to creep in, that little voice that's like, and I used to talk like this. I would call other people like normies, and I would be like, oh, all these normies or these people that are stuck in the matrix, like they don't understand and I understand. And then I think you go a little further along and you're like, wait, I don't understand jack shit. I'm just a fucking dumbass like everyone else. I just learned a couple of pieces of information, which, yeah, they help me, but I'm not suddenly like smarter or better than everyone else.
Yeah. And it's funny now. I'm looking up at the map of consciousness on my wall, and pride is right there above anger. And just,
Yeah, bro.
Andy talks a lot about David Hawkins and the map of consciousness on this channel, I think. So maybe some people are familiar. But yeah, it sort of shows the different emotions that you go through as you sort of move up. So yeah,
Yeah,
pride's
and
right there, right before
pride
courage.
is pretty low. While you talk, I'll
Yeah.
show it on the screen, but yeah,
Mhm.
pride's a fucking a nasty one, isn't it? It's a tricky little one because a lot of people talk about pride. Here you go. Here's the map of consciousness.
Well, yeah, you could say that, but it's also like an amazing one. Like you just moved
Oh,
from
it's a step up.
fear,
Yeah,
desire, anger up to pride. Like it's a pretty cool place to be, really.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a gateway. It's the gateway, as David Hawkins says it.
Mhm.
Because courage is where you really start to take responsibility for your own life. And above that is where you start to be more open to other people and you start to give back to other people. And then below pride, you know, the emotions like anger, fear, grief, apathy, shame, is where you're sort of, I guess, sapping energy from yourself and from other people. Like we all kind of know
Mhm.
that fear and grief and apathy and shame, like it's not, you don't feel positive when you feel those things. So pride is sort of the pivot point, man. And like people can get to a point of pride and then go, okay, I finally feel proud of myself. Let's go from here and let's keep climbing and let's start being more open-minded. Let's start giving back to other people. Let's start giving back to myself even and being kinder to myself. And then other people feel that pride and they pivot downwards. So they feel the like nationalistic pride. Like, you know, fuck yeah, America. Like a lot of people feel fuck yeah, America pride. And then they go, so therefore let's bomb other countries. And I know that's more the government doing that, but like, you know, you feel that nationalistic pride and maybe you start a war because you're like, well, fuck the other guys. I'm proud of who I am. So that means everybody else who's not like me needs to die. And pride taken to an extreme level can result in something like Nazi Germany. That's extreme pride and a lot of other emotions there too. Or it can pivot upwards into like,
Yeah.
you know, pride for human beings, pride for humanity, like beauty and love and all of that. So it really is
Yeah.
a pivot point, pride, especially spiritual pride, man.
Yeah. And to like dial it back from Nazi Germany into like a single
Yeah.
person, to me, pride feels like it feels like you finally have something to sort of give, and you want to,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it often ends up like misguided or missing the mark of what you intended, but like you're finally starting to give, and it's really cool.
Yeah, bro. I swear to God, I'll pull the map up again. I'll show it on the screen again. But for a lot of people, especially people that come to like coaching and stuff like that, if we can just get them to the point of pride, like holy shit, that's a beautiful life. A lot of people, if they were in pride for the rest of their life, it's like what an accomplishment. Like if you're feeling guilt and shame and you just like actually hate who you are, a lot of therapy and counselors and
Still have
psychologists.
me.
Yeah. You're still there. You're still there. You cut out for a little bit, but you're good. So I was saying, if you're like in therapy and stuff like that and counselors, a lot of the time, if their client is down in guilt or shame or apathy or fear, they would give anything to be able to help their client get up to pride. Like that would be amazing. And so a lot of people, yeah, you're like way below that point. So pride can be a beautiful thing. But I guess in the context of this conversation of like that spiritual pride that you can get into, yeah, I definitely had that for a couple of years, man. This is like many years ago. This is when I first did LSD when I was like 28. Yeah, there are a couple of years of like pride there. And I think I always had that in to some extent during my self-improvement years. Like I said, I would call other people like normies. It still comes up from time to time now, but it's more like an impatience. I sometimes feel a little bit impatient. My knee-jerk reaction is impatient. I even, if I'm fully honest, had it with one or two questions on. I did a live stream with Cam yesterday. Whenever I get a question where the person has some like blind spots in their thinking and they have limiting beliefs or negative thoughts, and I can see that negative thought so clearly. And I know that, or I can't know, but like I've seen enough other people, if they just let go of that limiting belief, there's just like happiness and beauty on the other side of it, but they're stuck on it. And they're so convinced that they're correct. A good example is like, I'm bald, so no woman would ever date me. Or I'm short, so women hate me, or they think I'm ugly. And I can just see that if they didn't think that thought, if they didn't believe that thought, beautiful shit would happen. But they're stuck on it. And I sometimes find myself getting a little bit impatient with that. And maybe you wouldn't call that spiritual ego or something, but like it's definitely a lack of love. It's a lack of patience. And I let go of it. I do some deep breathing and I go, well, I used to be like this. I used to have limiting beliefs. I used to believe so firmly that I was unlovable and I was a piece of shit. And I understand that. But yeah, sometimes that it's almost like a spiritual impatience. I don't know if you have that too. The further you get with self improvement and spirituality, a feeling of like, I wish other people would hurry up and get to my level of understanding so then I could really help them with the other stuff.
Yeah, of course. Of course. I think, yeah, and then you kind of turn it back on yourself. And it's like, oh wow, yeah, probably tend to my own garden before I shit on theirs.
I know, bro. And like almost every time I'm frustrated with someone else not understanding something, I'm like, well, I'm currently not understanding them, right? So I'm doing the very thing that I'm accusing them of. Or if they're like being negative, I replied to some guy's comment this morning, literally on this morning, dude, where he wrote some negative comment, right? And I was like, is this you just focusing on the negative instead of the positive? And then, 20 minutes later, I'm like, oh, for fuck's sakes, Andy, you just focused on his negative instead of his positive. So you're doing the exact same thing you just accused him of. And like, I didn't accuse him. I was trying to be gentle with it. But like, yeah, I find most of the time, dude, whatever we're saying someone else is doing, it's like, bro, we're like literally doing the exact same thing. And that's one of the fun things of being a coach. Like in our coaching program, you'll see someone do some behavior or something, they're asking for some advice or whatever. And your knee jerk reaction might be like, hey, just stop doing this. Or hey, try this. And it's like, maybe I could learn that fucking lesson that I'm trying to give that person. I feel like half of coaching is we'll say something to someone and then we're like, nah, I'm saying that for me. And sometimes you'll even hear me say that when I
Yeah.
leave voice messages for people. Dude, I'll literally be like, and I'm saying this for me, but you can hear it too. You're allowed to
Yep.
listen to this too. And I'll be coaching myself while I'm talking to them.
Yeah, it's like I've almost certainly done some version of whatever thing I'm
Yeah.
saying they're doing is wrong in the past. And I'm probably doing it right now.
And I'm probably going to do it tomorrow too. Yeah. I think that's why like give yourself permission to suck helps so much. And
Mhm.
because you're a very humble person, and I am curious like how you got to that point. Because for me, it was like the ego hurt so much, like being arrogant and saying that I know everything and trying to be the expert with my content was just like an impossible thing that I couldn't do. So I kind of gave up, and I was just like, look, I don't have all the answers, but I'll just try and help you. But why did you embrace that sort of like humble side?
I mean, there's multiple answers. On one hand, it just feels good, and that's like on the day to day, that's what I'm guided by a lot is what feels better. Like a sort of logical answer could be that for me, it would be like I would have amnesia if I wasn't empathetic because like I grew up very Christian, very strictly like Christian, and then switched to being an atheist for like 10 years and then
Hmm.
kind of circled back to some spirituality. So I've just that's like, how deep that is. That affects everything in your life, kind of it's your belief system, right? And I've completely done a 180 flip-flop on it, like into three different, like totally different ways. So
Yeah.
on every single
Yeah.
like major belief, I've completely done a 180. So if to not to not be, accepting of someone else is like to not be accepting of myself. It's total hypocrisy.
Yeah.
It's totally forgetting about, and I've not just done that with my sort of my sort of spiritual or religious beliefs. I've done that in many areas, whether it's like being like growing up very liberal and then trying being very conservative and sort of really not just like trying it on, but like really living it sort of.
Hmm.
And so again, like I've just done just a huge 180 on so many things in my life. And I could point to so many more examples, but those are the biggest ones where it's just like I don't even know.
I think people are so desperate for an answer, like desperate to know. Like when I was young, I was a hardcore atheist too. I'm going to say up until like maybe like 2 or 3 years ago. Like when I say hardcore atheist, I mean I would literally go around thinking that I was like Neo from the Matrix, like I'd taken the red pill, and everyone else was like, all these religious people were like stupid. And I watched so much like Christopher Hawkins. Christopher Hawkins? Am I thinking of the right person? Richard
I don't
Dawkins
know.
and Christopher
Oh, yeah.
Hitchens, Christopher Hitchens and Richard Dawkins and all those people.
Type, yeah.
The hardcore atheist debaters, and I would like be like, yeah, got him. Like, look at these, they're fucking putting these religious losers in their place. And, I had a
Checkmate.
religious family. Checkmate fucking theologist.
Brain
Like,
loves that, right?
bro, I was like so hungry for the right answer. Like, and I thought that I
Yeah.
had all the answers when I was like 14. Literally, I was like the fucking I'm 14 and this is deep kind of kid, where I would just watch Christopher Hitchens and be like, wow, yeah, he got him. And man, like as I got older, I started to then understand. Like my next level of knowledge was like understanding why religion exists. Because until I was like, I don't know, maybe 25 or so, I just hated religion. I was like, atrocities and wars and evil and fucking bad, and religion is the worst thing ever, and it's keeping humanity in shackles and chains. And I just had this very dark view of religion. But then when I was about 25 roughly, I started understanding why it exists. Well, people are scared of death, and religion can comfort them. People don't have all the answers. And, like Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, all of us are kind of just going through life trying to find some meaning. And religion is a very, very, very like comforting, beautiful like book that someone hands to you and says, hey, here's all the answers. And you go, wow, someone smarter than me wrote all the answers. That's cool. I mean, that's why everyone is on this channel right now, or most people. You're here because you think that we have the answers, and you're like, please tell me the answers. That's why I say all the time, I don't have all the fucking answers for you. I'm not your dad. I'm certainly not like some God or something or a Bible that can hand it to you. I have some answers that have worked for me, but it's up to you to figure out the answers. And then there was some level of understanding above that, maybe over the last 5 years, where I was like, okay, there are clearly some things that are bigger than me. Like a group of other people is bigger than me. A society is bigger than me. Humanity is bigger than me, like greater than me. The solar system is greater than me. The universe, as far as like what we can see when we look at it through telescopes, that's clearly bigger than me. There was a time, at least we think, there was a time way before humanity that I can't fucking explain. There's probably going to be a time after humanity. There's probably going to be something that happens after I die. Like, I don't understand any of that. And all of that shit that I don't understand, I'm going to call that, I don't use the word God, but I use the word like the universe. Or sometimes I'll say life or like existence. And so that is what I'm kind of getting at, or that's the stuff that I'm interested in. And I guess that's the stuff that the word spirituality, or part of what the word spirituality refers to. And I think sometimes people get spirituality mixed up with religion. But I'm curious what the word spirituality means for you, and more to the point, why you would pursue any sort of spirituality. Because we don't just sit here like philosophers sort of jerking ourselves off over spirituality. There is a little bit of that, but like I've found it tremendously beneficial in my self-improvement, and I'm interested how self-improvement's helped you. Like, why do you give a shit about spirituality?
Yeah, again, like there's multiple ways to answer. I think one answer is you kind of sort of want to end up holding the beliefs that serve you the most.
Yeah.
And you could almost have any belief you wanted, right? It's like, what's
I
the
mean,
quote?
people
Like,
do.
nothing
Yeah.
is good or bad. Thinking makes it so. So you can kind of things are happening, and then we're having stories about them, and we kind of want to hold the stories that help us the most, help us with our, if that's with our self-improvement journeys, or just like what feels the best, what helps us love other people the best. So on one hand, if being religious helps you with that, and it certainly does for many, many people, amazing,
Mhm.
go for it. Like if being spiritual helps you with that, amazing, go for it. If being atheist is good for you that way, then amazing, go for it. It's sort of like you find what works for you.
Yeah. You're finding a framework. I think religion, spirituality, even atheism, all of that, libertarianism, this is basically people trying to find a framework for life. And sometimes it's a moral framework. Sometimes it's just a set of actions. Like a lot of religions will prescribe actual actions for you to take. Love thy neighbor, go to church on Sunday so you can build community. Like people like Mother Teresa and lots of Christians, like love your family. They will prescribe
Yeah.
actual actions. And
Mhm.
I think that it's a useful framework for that. But at the end of the day, we're very big advocates of like the framework that works for you. And it's funny that people get very caught up and this is where that pride comes into it. This is where I say pride is a pivot point in your life. You can either pivot upwards with pride or pivot downwards in pride. And lots of the time people pivot downwards with pride and go, well, I like this religion, or I like this spirituality, or I like this like meditative practice or whatever. And my pride is telling me that that's the only correct way of doing it. And so I'm going to argue with everyone who has a different method or a different thing that makes them happy. I think the real like spiritual wide open brain realization is like, oh wow, there's different versions of framework for life that can bring people different people happiness. That's the
Yeah,
most spiritual. That's the most correct.
we can end the video
I'm
now.
joking.
You
Yeah, I'm
figured it
joking. I'm
out.
clearly fucking joking.
The Yeah, it's interesting that, like you mentioned, our brains are searching for these answers. They're constantly
Mm,
searching for silver bullets. And being a coach, you get to see this the best. Like you're constantly searching for other people to like answer these things for you. And it was cool too, like switching from being your coaching client. I sort of still am, but being your coaching client to like being a coach in your program. You get to see this because it's like, wait, you guys don't know, like I'm still the same person. I'm still the same as you. I'm just a coaching client, but now I have this magic little coach tag after my name that's just invented. Someone just pulled it out of their ass. I'm still the same person, and now you're looking to me for answers. It's hilarious to see. Yeah, our brains, and it's, you know, you know, we have these beautiful problem-solving engines in our heads,
mm,
and so amazing that they're always looking for answers. Like that's led us to so many good things. And then also these engines in our head are always looking to conserve energy, right? So why do we always look to label and simplify everything constantly? You can say that you're not, but you are. Like we're all always looking to simplify and understand. Almost by understanding something, you are simplifying it. Just by translating it into language, you're simplifying it. So yeah, we're
yeah,
looking to understand and like conserve energy. That's why we love labeling things.
dude.
It makes it
Imogen
understandable.
Labeling things is the perfect way of phrasing it. So Imogen and I, like 6 months ago, we were on this hike and we climbed up to the top of this mountain, and there was just this incredible fucking view. I didn't take a picture because I always forget to take pictures, but like you could just see like massive valleys of just trees and mountains, and in the distance you could see like the city that we like live in right now. You could see the beach, the ocean. You could just see for miles in every direction, and all of these trees. And we just kind of paused and we were standing there looking at all of the trees, and we were talking about the meaning of life and stuff like that. And I said, do you know what our purpose is, Imogen? Like us as human beings, us as humanity? Or do you know the thing that brings us the most amount of joy? And she's like, what? And I was like, see all of this, see every individual tree that we have in front of us. Like there's like millions of trees down there. I was like, human beings get the most amount of pleasure from getting a little sticky note out and writing tree with 7 branches and sticking that on every single tree. And then every leaf, and then we stick that on every leaf. And then every bug, okay, this is an ant, and we put it on the ant. And then this is our female ant, and we put it on that ant. And we just go around putting sticky notes on everything. So we can say, this is a tree, this is a rock, this is this is that, this is a cloud. But we did kind of invent all of those concepts. We're constantly inventing labels for everything, and we're all just like making it all up. But there's so much joy in making it all up and telling these cool little stories of like, this is a forest. Look at all the trees. Well, this forest has like this type of tree and this type of tree and this type of tree. And for the most part, as far as I can see, nature just doesn't give a fuck. Nature's just like, yo, I'm just doing my thing. And then humans come along and we're like, yeah, but you're doing your thing in this way. And then sometimes you do it like this, and then this tree and this. And like, we want to break everything down and label it because that's fun. It's cool. It's like we're a little autistic people.
Have you ever tried to do Byron Katie's morning walk exercise?
Where you let go of all concepts?
I'll just read it out.
Okay.
It's so lovely to just walk and not know and let each object you see tell you what it is rather than you telling it. Just listen, be still, and allow everything to name itself, or not. Simply notice and be free in that, as though everything is yet to be named. Because someone named it tree, you really think it's a tree. But what if you just got still, noticed, and let it tell you? I invite you to the don't know mind as you experience this morning walk any time of day. So, yeah, essentially you go out for a walk and you try not to name anything or try not to like have the thought of naming it and understanding it in terms of some other noun. And yeah, I've tried to do this with Natasha. It's incredibly difficult. You always end up trying to use something else to tell someone what it is.
Dude, on YouTube, have you ever heard of the channel called Vsauce?
Mm-mm.
Okay, he's one of my favorite YouTubers. And he did a video a couple of years ago called Do Chairs Exist? About exactly this concept. It's a 40-minute video about how you call something a chair, but then he goes into all the different ways that that thing isn't actually a chair, and all of the ways that you could break down the definition of chair and call it something else. And I won't spoil it, but it's fucking amazing. He goes into some really cool philosophical ideas of like the ship of Theseus, if any of you know what that philosophical thought is, which is basically if you had a ship and slowly over the years you were to replace every single part of that ship with a new part, is that still the same ship of Theseus that you started with? Or is it a new part, like ship? We'd still call it the same ship because we've just slowly changed it over time, but it's not technically the same thing. And so he goes into the same discussion with a chair. He's like, if I was to shave off a little piece of the chair, do I call that a chair? The bit that I just shaved off? Or is that like wood chips or like wood filings? But if I keep sanding, at what point is it no longer a chair? And at what point is the little pile of shavings on the ground more of a chair than the actual chair? Like, how do we define these concepts? And so it's just a really cool, like, head fucking, it fucks with your head a little bit kind of video. And he does a lot of like thought experiments like that. But yeah, it is funny that we walk around, you're right. And it's like, there's a tree, there's a car, there's a road, there's a building, there's this, there's that. And this concept might seem, or this discussion we're having might seem like we're just having some weird fucking hippie discussion of like, yeah, I know, dude, I get it that we just called that a tree in a building. I know that, dude. I know we labeled things. It's like, yeah, but
so
you don't
if you want
understand.
to improve your sex life, just stop using words, ladies and gentlemen.
No, but like literally, dude, that's the point that I'm getting to. This isn't even just a stupid discussion that we're having. My sex life, and definitely my business life, definitely my friendships, absolutely my relationship, like literally everything in my life has improved the more I'm able to be more open-minded and less judgmental. And if you can realize that this brain, this beautiful brain, is literally set up to judge, that's what labeling is. Labeling is a form of judgment. And the way that the brain works is it likes to label things as either good or bad, yes or no. Like we call that binary, or you might call that dualistic thinking. You're thinking in terms of like, everything's a dualism. It's either good or it's bad. You know, this woman is either a great mother or she's a shit mother. This politician is either evil and corrupt, or he's a great human being who's going to change the world. If you can stop thinking in terms of, or at least do it a little bit less, like
it's
less
so
thinking.
helpful.
It is, man. I wrote this article called Always Keep an Open Mind, and you don't have to be perfect with that, but I've tried to always keep an open mind with dates. I can't tell you how many times I'm tempted to not go on a date because I'm like, I don't think this person will be a good match for me. I go on the date and my mind is just blown. I mean, it happened a month ago with this new girl that we met. From her pictures, I was like, she's like okay. Like the pictures are okay. I don't know about this day. I get there in person and like literally I say to her, like, you're like fucking 10 times cuter than your pictures. Like, what the hell? Like, just there are so many beautiful moments in my life where I've decided to try not labeling something and to not even label myself. Because that's probably the biggest thing people do, man. Like, if we think people go around putting sticky notes on trees and rocks and buildings and cars and stuff, nah, man. I think most of the labels that we put on things are on ourselves, either good or bad, like positive or negative, helpful or unhelpful. And I think a lot of people are so busy putting sticky notes on themselves, like I'm bold and ugly, I'm unlovable, I'm disgusting, I'm a bad person because I yelled at my sister when I was like 4 years old and I've never forgiven myself. Like we put these fucking sticky notes, man.
Sticky
and they're
notes
limiting.
that cut us off from love and joy. Yeah,
we're focusing on something that isn't quite out. It's like this. It's like you pigeonhole things. Like sticky notes again.
It's making a judgment. Yeah.
And then you're containing the thing. A really good example is, let's say I just go, I mean, here's a really good fucking example. If I just label someone else as like, oh, this person's a bad person, like I'm not going to listen to anything they say, they're a bad person. They could say something that would genuinely change my life, but I don't even hear it because I'm too busy saying wrong, stupid. Why would I listen to that? And I might miss some beautiful piece of information that would genuinely positively change the rest of my life, but I don't hear it because I'm too busy saying I'm not listening. Fuck you, you're wrong. We call that throwing out the baby with the bathwater. And I feel like that's a hell of a lot of people. I even do it myself sometimes. Like this brain, this beautiful brain wants to do that constantly because, like you said, it's very efficient. It saves you a lot of time to go, that person's a piece of shit. I don't have to listen to anything they say. I've even done that like recently with certain people on YouTube and other dating coaches and stuff, that my brain will just go like, no, don't worry about that person. Like, I don't like their initial vibe, so no, thank you. People do that with us, obviously. And then you come back to their content a few months later, it gets shown to you in the algorithm.
Yeah, there's some nuggets here.
Yeah. And you're like, why was I so dismissive? And it's okay. That's like what this brain is hardwired to do. It is here to be dismissive. But there is a level above that where you sort of notice that dismissive thought and go, I'm going to try being open-minded just to see what happens. Out of curiosity, I'm going to see what happens. And beautiful stuff happens, man, most of the time.
Yeah. And it's a funny thought experiment too, you know. It's true for me. Like, if I rewound myself to the thoughts I was having, say, take like sex and dating, for example. If I rewound myself to the thoughts I was having about it 5 years ago, I'd be like, what the fuck's wrong with this guy?
Yeah.
And you could probably say the same. You were putting it out publicly, so you have like this example of it. You've changed so much.
But we had so many limiting thoughts that we thought were true. Dude, you had thoughts about like women's sexuality, and so did I. Oh my God. Like I had the like Madonna whore complex, which if anyone doesn't know, it's a black or white method of thinking, which is what we're talking about. You think that either a woman is a good woman, she's a good girl, she doesn't have a lot of sex, so she's a good woman, or you think she's a bad girl, you think she's a slut. And like a lot of people think like that. That's why we have words like slut. If a woman has too much sex, whatever too much means for that person, they'll call her a slut. Or, you know, they do the same with guys. If a guy just suddenly wants sex too much or is too honest about the fact that he wants sex, he's a pervert. He's disgusting. And so, like, it's that black or white thinking. Or
like a fuck boy who couldn't, like, possibly go any deeper. So it's cool you can throw the baby out with the bathwater on your own self a few years ago. And so if you kind of apply that, you know, obviously for who we are now, and we kind of like who we are now. So there was some beautiful intentions there. There was a lot of good stuff there. And so if you can kind of apply that thinking to other people, you know, obviously there's probably some good stuff there.
Yeah. It's like every human being is a lot deeper than one label. It's probably a better way of saying that. And when you are so quick to label, you literally won't be able to see, like you block yourself from seeing all of the depth of that human. And I think we all know that on a logical surface level. Like that statement that I just said sounds true. And yet we will fall into that trap. You'll see on the internet sometimes people will label someone else a Nazi. I disagree with this person, so they're a Nazi. And it's like, you've missed like everything about that person. It's like if I was to look at you and I'm like, he has a mustache. Like, he's a mustache person. And you're like, yeah, but like, that's just one aspect of him. There's like 7,000 labels I could give you. And to tell the story of he's a mustache guy, there's missing all the rest. Yeah. What were you going to say?
Fun discussion point on this is like talking about religion versus atheism. Say, like, we pretend that we're one thing. Like, and again, it's our brains like looking to label it, looking to conserve energy. We pretend we're one thing. So like, I don't know anyone, and now I'm just throwing out an absolute. So someone out there watching this will probably say you're wrong. I'm the one exception. But I don't know anyone who's religious who has never not, like, for a split instant, not believed or questioned, their faith in a higher power. And I don't know any atheist who has never said a prayer or wondered if there may be something more. And yet we pretend we're one thing. Okay, yeah.
There's a joke where it's like, oh, you're atheist. You put a gun to the person's head.
Yeah.
What's in their head right now? Please don't shoot me. Please, God, please don't let this. It's like, all right, yeah. Even I, when I was hardcore atheist,
Yeah, and I'm a pilot, so all pilots end up saying a prayer at some point.
Yeah.
Gets you to God real quick. Yeah, but like when we say that we're one thing, we're just saying like, maybe this is my average on an average day.
Or this is what I believe right now. I am this one thing right now. Like someone will say, I'm a conservative for right now. I'm a liberal for right now. In this moment, in this small definition of the word. And yeah, you miss so much of the magic of a human being. I think to make it maybe more tangible, like with sex and dating. How many times, like I can just think of like, I don't know, man, like 30 times where if I wasn't open-minded, I literally wouldn't have had sex with someone and connected with them and made all these beautiful memories. Like times where I had a knee-jerk judgment and I was like, just relax a little bit and see what happens. I can think of times I thought of not approaching, but then I said, fuck it, just do it. Like times when I was like, nah, she probably has a boyfriend, or she's too scary, or she's too hot for me, or like she wouldn't want to talk to a guy like me. And then there's been individual moments where the woman where I'm like especially with Asian girls, like very conservative Chinese and Vietnamese girls, where everything in my brain is like, they wouldn't be open to casual sex. And then I'm like, just fucking ask. And one Chinese girl in particular that I saw for like over a year, she was so like adorably Chinese and like big nerdy glasses and like cute little cheeks and like just the classic cute little Chinese girl. And my brain was like, don't talk to her. Like, she's Chinese. Why would you talk to her? She's not even going to talk to you. She's definitely not going to date you. And there's no way she sleeps with you. And I went and hit on her, and like every preconceived notion that I had was wrong. She had been traveling all over the world since she was like 14. Her parents, for some reason, let her travel solo at 14 and go to America. And then she was coming to Australia, and she'd been having sex for the last like year or two. And so she was reasonably experienced. She was like 19 or 20. She was like incredibly sexual. She was the first person that I dated that was very easy to have sex with. Like no sort of like, I didn't have to do all, it was just like, do you want to have sex? Like, yes. And it's like every preconceived notion that pretty much every preconceived notion I've ever had about women, particularly about like one particular woman at that moment, it's just turned out to be, if not wrong, at least just like missing a lot more context. And I've been making it harder on myself to have sex and to build connections every time I've limited my thinking, especially with thoughts of like, she won't fuck me. And it's like, ugh, well, she definitely won't if you say that in your head. And even then you might be wrong. She might fuck you, even while you're saying she won't fuck me. And then you get proven wrong. It's a very humbling experience.
I feel like my whole relationship with Natasha is built on this idea of like going a little deeper than your surface level judgments, questioning things, not just accepting that everything is the way you think it was, actually like finding out. And it's a fun thing to talk about too. If you go on a date with a new person and then you get to know them a little better. You get to ask them like, what did you think of me
That's my
initially?
favorite question.
It's a
Yeah,
fun one
yeah,
because it
yeah.
just paints this stuff so clearly. With us, it was like, it, I'm really into hippie girls and she's a hippie girl. So I was like, I was just sure that you were going to be like so pushy with your left politics and like that was what you were going to want to talk about all the time. And it didn't materialize at all. But I was like, I thought everything was going to be great with us, but like you were just going to be so pushy with that stuff that I couldn't handle it. Didn't materialize at all. Like we just have beautiful discussions, like where we kind of respect each other's. And for me, what was it like? She was dressed like a hippie and I was dressed up pretty nice because that was kind of in my like trying to put a lot of effort into dating phase. So I was dressed kind of nice and she was just like, I thought you were way too fancy for me. And
Which is like
well,
the opposite. I know you like reasonably well. Yeah.
yeah,
The idea of you being like too fancy for someone,
yeah.
you're like so chill and like down to earth and welcoming and loving. Yeah.
When she
Yeah.
met my parents for the first time, she had to dress up. She had to like put on makeup. She never wears makeup. She had to like wear makeup, and then she met my parents. They're just the most humble people. Like I mean, we're Alaskan, and like we just like, people
So
do
you
not
handed
care about appearances here.
your parents gave her a salmon,
Yeah.
free salmon, and some snow. There you go. Although she comes from Alaska, so maybe not. She's in Alaska with you, so maybe not. When I think of Alaska, I just think salmon. Salmon and a bear, and like it's fucking cold.
Basically.
Yeah, it's pretty accurate. But yeah, dude, like my people's. Okay, I'm curious, and maybe you already know the answer to this because I might have mentioned it. I'm curious, what do you think like most girls' first impression of me is? Like in the first like 15 minutes on a date or something.
Like now. Like
No,
now.
okay, no. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'll phrase that again. What do you think their impression of me is before they've really met me? So like on a dating app or something, before we actually get to sit down in person and build that connection.
Um, I'm guessing like the way you kind of portray yourself for dating, that it's some kind of like rich YouTuber, like entrepreneur type person, and like they probably feel inadequate and like
And
why like
BDSM.
and BDSM and like why is this person give me the time of day? Is that
Yeah, and I don't portray myself as like rich YouTuber, but there definitely is like a little bit of glamour and more to the point, like a lot of BDSM and a lot of
mm,
like domination, and this guy's going to take the lead. I've
okay?
had
So
like
kind of just
multiple women.
like a like a dom where dom is like your whole personality type of person.
Mhm.
Okay.
I've had so many women say like, "You're so sweet and nice and gentle," and I
Mm,
didn't expect that. I thought you were just going to be this like super serious, like 50 Shades of Grey, like. And this is one of the things that happens in dating apps, which is why I say keep an open mind and meet up in person. It's also why I say, there's a guy in the coaching group right now that I'm just like drilling into him, dude. I've said it to him multiple times. So I'm like, look, if you want to sit there on a dating app and message for like fucking 50 hours to each other, fine, do whatever you want. But understand that that's not the person. Like you haven't had a chance to really meet the person until you're in person with them. And so I'm kind of pushing him gently, like, dude, just write less messages, ask for her phone number, go
yeah.
on a date. Like, you haven't built any chemistry. You've only built chemistry with like a tiny little facet of the person on online
Yeah.
dating and
It's a
messaging.
perfect example. It's like, you know zero about them until you met them
Mm.
in person. Yeah, it's a perfect example of that. Everything you know about them is a snap judgment. How could it not be? So
Remember
yeah, that's
the,
why, yeah, we push people to just like get in person as soon as they can.
yeah, the woman in the coaching program right now, the way that I just said that sounds like it. She's like the token woman. The woman, a woman in the coaching program right now. She- but she had this too, dude. She would like get her hopes up and got really excited about a couple of guys, and then when she met some of them in person, she's like, "Oh fuck, like they're not like what I thought." And then the opposite happened. There was one guy, the guy that she's seeing right now that she really likes. Dude, before that, she was like, "Yeah, there's like a little bit of chemistry over texting." But then when they met in person, she's like, "Wow, holy crap. There's so many
Yeah.
different facets to him, so many different parts of his personality that I couldn't see on the dating app." And it's like, this is why we say meet up ASAP. We're not just saying that because we want you, like, because we're fuckboys and we're like, yo, meet up ASAP and get laid. Like, that's kind of a nice benefit is you get sex earlier, but like, or you get to have sex earlier, but it's more that you can't get to know someone until you meet them. And I think there's a lot of guys that put all this pressure on themselves. I don't know know if they realize they're doing it. But a question that I'll get from time to time is like, hey, I've been messaging this girl for like the last 4 weeks. Like, how do I keep the conversation going? Like, how do I keep, it exciting and shit? And it's like, bro, you're messaging like you can kind of think of it like this. You're messaging one aspect of that person. It's like you haven't met the full person yet, and you're just falling in love with like 1% of them. Because again, who you are over text, we all kind of know this on a logical level, but we don't think about it deeply enough. Who you are over text is only like 1% of you as a person. Like most people text differently to the way that they actually verbally talk. If you want proof of this, start sending voice messages to the people that you date. And you'll see that even over a voice message, you are different from the way you are texting. And then if you want to go further than that, try having some like FaceTime messages with people. And you'll be like, oh, wow, I'm like radically different from my texting style. And then try meeting people. You'll be like, wow, I'm like so different on a date. And they're different too.
Yeah, to maybe make this like kind of expand this into what we're talking about. Like if you could think about this whole thing as a spectrum, on one end you have messaging their picture on Tinder. On the other hand, you have like telling them every single thought in your head, which I know you've said is something like you aspire to in your relationship. It's something I aspire to.
It's still always going to be a possibility though, because there's so many thoughts. Yeah.
So if you think of the whole thing as a spectrum, now maybe you meet them and you have like a sort of surface level conversation. Like we know what they're like, what do you do for work? What places have you traveled? Like the normal stuff you talk about. Oh, wow, I like the color blue too. And so now maybe you know them like 8% now, and then, kind of like what I want is just like always adding a few more percent to that, like trying to push the conversation a little deeper. And then in my relationship, that's really like probably the biggest goal is just how much can I know this person? Because you're always, they're always like going to be things you don't know. And so the more that I allow myself to be shown and the more that I try to get to know her, it's like we're having that much more intimacy. We're actually knowing each other as people. And again, like the stuff that you think it will be, it's like always wrong. Reality is so much more surprising and so much more beautiful.
It's like the thought we have in our head, like I guess we're talking about assumptions and judgments, whatever you want to call it. Like, but the preconceived notions or the limiting beliefs or the assumptions, it's like they're in black and white, but reality is in technicolor. Mm-hmm. Like you're missing just so much of reality when you limit yourself with thinking. Like when you say like, oh, I'm short, I can never get laid. Oh, that woman's not going to like me. What's the point? Oh, I could never start a business. It won't work out. Like when you think in terms of these like limiting beliefs or these small thoughts, you're just missing the wide gamut of like reality, I guess. You're missing so much. And I think, honestly, man, like, I feel like half of self-improvement is letting go of your preconceived notions or you don't have to fully let them go. Because it's not even that. You and I have plenty of limiting beliefs, like constantly. We just always do. Like pretty much everyone does. You have doubts, insecurities. But at least just opening the door slightly for the possibility that you might not fully know everything with that particular thing. So if you sit there and say, I'm short and so no woman would give me a chance, or it's too late for me because I'm old so I can't improve now. If you can just open the door a little bit to like, maybe there's a chance that someone out there will like me. Maybe there's a chance that it's not too late for me. If you can just have that little bit of hope, you can then start taking, what we focus on, baby steps to start working towards seeing if that's true. Like, is there a world in which I can do this?
That's one of the biggest traits you see in people who do well in coaching is like they allow that door to be opened a little bit.
Yeah.
It's what Cameron talks about a lot, it's humility to say I could be wrong.
It's hard. This beautiful brain doesn't want to say that. Even
Uh-uh.
my brain doesn't want to say I'm wrong. I've
Uh-uh.
just
It
gotten
just,
really good at practicing being wrong. What were you going to
yeah.
say?
Oh, yeah. It just, once you find out you're wrong about something, it just finds a new thing to not be wrong about.
Dude, yeah. Yeah. Again, like Buddhists and people like that call that like dualistic thinking.
Hmm.
And so what we're really talking about here, you can, if any of you are interested, you can look this up and start down this rabbit hole. The concept that we're talking about here is what's called non-dualism, which is where you
Yeah.
stop seeing things in terms of black or white, right or wrong.
Yeah. If you can just like hold a paradox in your mind and be okay with it, that's a beautiful step. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, and this is where, like in the video course, the Play to Win video course, I have a chapter called Everything is a Story, and
mm,
you're in control of the stories that you tell. That has been a mindset that's really helped me. So like anytime your brain is going like, I don't know, let's use a sex and dating example. Let's say your brain goes, I'm short and therefore no woman would like me. If you can just go, well, that's one story. What's a different story? A different
mm,
story could be, well, I'm short, but some women won't care. Okay. You can start holding different ideas in your head and realize
at
that
the same
both,
time. Yeah.
yeah, and
Mm,
then just go towards the story that serves you best. Like it serves you better to think, okay, some women will hate me for being short, cool, but other women won't care. And then some
mhm.
women will like that I'm short. Imogen, her best friend, is a fucking midget. Like she's actually straight up legally defined as a midget. She's like, she doesn't have dwarfism or anything, but she's 4 foot like 10. And she's like super, super, super short. Her boyfriend is like 4 foot 11. Think how short that is. And I got Imogen to ask her one time because I was curious. And I said, like, ask her if she likes taller guys. And she told Imogen, like, no, I hate taller guys. I feel very uncomfortable. I feel very intimidated. Literally, part of the reason I was so attracted to my boyfriend is because he's 4 foot 11. Like, he's a midget like me. And, like, literally, that's why I'm fucking attracted to him. And there are plenty of people out there that will literally like you because you're short. So you can hold those two different ideas in your head at the same time. Some women will hate short guys. Yep, true. Some women will love short guys. Cool. Okay, so both of these things can be true. It doesn't have to be me arguing on the fucking internet and saying, no, Andy and Taylor, you're wrong. No woman will ever like a short guy. You don't live in my world. You don't understand how wrong you are.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, maybe we're all correct. Maybe you're correct that some women won't like you because you're short. And
Yeah.
maybe we're correct that some women will like you. Go find the
Right.
women that like you,
So holding the belief cuts you off from the possibility of
that
taking
you might be
action.
fucking wrong. Yeah, and you
Once
might
you're
take action.
once you're open the door, as you said, like the possibility that you could be wrong. Now you're free to actually play the numbers game and go, okay, 98% of girls don't like it. I can't see that. Move
It's
it
going to
back a little.
focus in a second. Give it a second. Give it a second. My camera's shy. Come on, stop being shy. Focus. Focus, you little bitch.
Oh.
I love you. Focus. There you go. So it says, for everyone listening at home, this is a Byron Katie like quote, and it says, you can only see what you believe. Nothing else is possible. I've talked about this concept when I say the universe is a mirror, and Carl Jung and people like that talked about it, where they had a concept called psychological projection, which is basically you have a thought in your brain or a belief in your brain or a way of viewing the world, and then you project that out onto the world. It's also called confirmation bias, or confirmation bias is part of how that works. So if I believe that like women hate short men, I will listen to every woman and I will almost keep count, or I will keep count of all the women on dating apps who say, tall guys only, please. And then that's all I will see. And then if I walk past women who are with short guys, I'll ignore that. I'll literally block that out because that doesn't fit my belief, it doesn't fit my worldview, and it doesn't fit my narrative. And that's a big part of how this mechanism works, is we will confirmation bias and focus on the belief that we have, and we'll find evidence for that. And so
Yeah.
letting go of some of these notions allows you to actually realize, holy fuck, the entire time there were women out there that liked me, but I didn't talk to them because I didn't believe they existed. I didn't even try.
Yeah. I like the phrase, we are perceiving what we are conceiving.
Yeah. Yeah, you conceive it in your mind and then you see it out there. Confirmation bias. And we all do this. Understand, and I've said this before, understand that positivity, and I'm just like devoted to positivity, like I just am. I'm devoted to reality and viewing it through a positive lens. I'll say that. So I don't distort reality. I'm not interested in lying to myself and saying, like, if somebody is literally stabbing me in the hand at that point in time, I'm not going to be like, this is great, keep doing that. I'm going to say like, hey, stop. And then maybe I have to restrain. Like I'm listening to reality, but I'm always going to see it through a positive lens. Understand that that is a conscious choice that I have made. That is not self-deception. That is understanding how this framework works. It's understanding how my brain works and going, okay, I have several choices. I can focus on the negatives and be a negative person. How does that feel? Well, I did that for most of my childhood and teenage years and into my early 20s. And guess what? I wanted to fucking kill myself every day. Okay, so we gave that a really good shot. I tried that for like 21 years. Didn't feel so good. Okay, what if I focus on the positives? Again, still focusing on reality, but just looking through, like telling a positive story, finding the silver lining in everything rather than finding the negative in everything. And since trying that, holy fuck, literally everything in my life has improved 10,000 billion%. And I'm surrounded by other positive people who improve my life 10 billion%. It's like, all right, I gave it a good go of trying to be negative. And it's not that binary, but I'm making it binary, funnily enough, in a conversation about not making it binary, but I'm making it binary to prove the point. I tried being really negative and looking at everything through a negative lens, and I thought I was being realistic when I did that. I literally thought I was being realistic. I thought that me being negative and being a hardcore grumpy atheist and saying that everyone, sucked and women would never love me and relationships are just pain. I thought all of that was me telling the truth. I was like an edgy emo teenager who thought that he had a monopoly on truth. I literally thought I knew the way that the world was. And I thought anyone that was happy or positive was deluded and stupid. And since going through that, now the point that I'm at in my life, I choose to tell positive stories, but I know that it's a choice now. I know I could sit here and say 5,000 negative things in my life right now. And sometimes my brain is tempted to do that. I know you too. The same thing. We've talked about it in coaching. Some of the negative things in your life, or things that you could focus on that are negative in your life. But it's a very conscious choice to go, well, I don't feel good when I do that. And that also just makes me feel negative, and it makes it harder to then solve the problems or work towards what I want. And when you switch it up and say, I'm going to focus on a little bit more positive stuff, you don't have to be perfect with that, but focusing a little bit more on the positive and just slowly making progress with that. Fuck, man, it's just so much more empowering.
Yeah. Something I've been thinking about a lot lately is sort of like using your body as the feedback instrument, and it's like your body's like this beautifully tuned harp, and you can hear when you pluck a string and it's like one of the notes doesn't resonate and it's out of tune and it's like, what's that? And then when you pluck one and it feels good, and you can almost just, if you didn't have anything else, you could just go by that and you'd be in a pretty beautiful spot.
You're talking about integrity. Like we call that integrity.
Yeah.
Listening to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you like apply that to dating, like, yeah, maybe talking about some of the sort of red pill stuff, like a lot of it has a lot of truth to it. And then when you apply it, like, how do you feel? Like, how do you feel when you lay your head down on the pillow? You can certainly learn a lot from that stuff, and I did, and you did. There's a lot of good there. But then, like, for me, it felt like there was something that still felt yucky in my body, And when I contrast that with how I just feel using honesty, it feels like there's no extra layer. Like,
yeah. And I love that you said there's truth in the red pill stuff. And if you don't know what we're talking about when we say the red pill, you can just kind of Google Reddit, the red pill. And like you said, there's a lot of truth there. There is. But there's a lot of focusing on the negative as well. And I was in that community for about 2 years, and they helped me a tremendous amount. They really did. I've said that many times. But they also put a lot of like negative thoughts in my head that then I had to detox from over the next like couple of years. You know, women are like this, women are going to cheat on you, women always just want to get your money, women are gold diggers, like all of that kind of stuff. And it's insidious because those stories aren't necessarily always wrong. And they would post articles and they would say, look, here's like 50 news articles about women who like fucked over their men and were just with them as gold diggers. And I would see that and I'd be like, oh, wow. Like, so women can be gold diggers. But they would make the erroneous step of saying, so therefore all women are gold diggers.
Yeah.
And that's what we're focusing on here. It's like some women are gold diggers, sure. Some guys are fuckboys. Some guys will stab you through the heart. Some women will too. Why do we care about that? We're not going to date those people. We don't want those people. Like, nothing against them, but that's just not what we're looking for. So we're going to go find the people that are kind, that are compassionate. And so we choose to tell, like you and I and everyone in the coaching program, we choose to tell very positive, loving stories about people that we're dating. So I tell stories of like, women are sweet. Women are just like men. At their core, they just want to be loved and understood and they want to be happy. Women are very kind and compassionate and empathetic and understanding. Women love sex as much as I do, maybe even more.
Yeah.
Women are very kinky. Women are very honest. Women are very good at being emotionally mature. Those stories serve me better.
Ends up being a self-fulfilling prophecy, especially when you add the numbers game, because now you're just going out and interviewing tons of candidates and the ones that align with what you're thinking, you know, whether it's like women are very sexual, kinky creatures, women are honest and kind, and then the people that don't align with you, like they X themselves out, and the ones who do align with you, like you have a sort of magnetic attraction. So yeah, it ends up being self-fulfilling, which is really cool because it's almost like, and
I was going to say, and you hold them to a higher standard and you hold yourself to a higher standard. You say, you know, so here's a good example. I've been on so many dates and in relationships where the other person might tell a little lie, or I can see that they're not fully opening up because not everyone is comfortable opening up and telling the whole truth. Like, that takes some practice. It took me a lot of years. But because I have the idea, or that I choose to tell the story that like women are honest, women are loyal, women are loving, women are very good at opening up, I will basically say, sometimes even literally, I'll be like, no, come on. Like, you know, women are really good at opening up. Come on, like show me that you can open up. And she'll go, okay, I can, you're right. I can open up. You're right. Okay. All right. Here you go. And I'll go, yeah, see, I knew it. I knew I was correct. I literally become a force of nature. And I don't force people, but like it feels like I'm this, I guess you can say with my content, I'm a force of nature that believes so strongly or tells a strong story that all of you are capable of compassion, love, empathy, kindness, achieving your goals, all of those beautiful things. And I tell that story so passionately that a lot of you get caught up in the fanfare of it. You get caught up in the passion and the beauty of it that you go, you know what, this fucking bold prick might actually be right. Let me try. And then you literally try harder because I held you to a higher standard. And if you can't meet that standard, that's okay. You're a human being. I don't even meet my own standards some of the time. Like, that's okay. We're all humans. We give ourselves permission to suck. I give everyone else permission to suck. But having that standard of like, I'm going to tell this positive story that dating can be a beautiful experience. Women can be beautiful. Men can be beautiful. All of this. If I tell that story, people will rise to the occasion because it sounds like a sexy, fun, amazing, beautiful story that people want to be a part of. But if I tell a negative story, people lower themselves down to that. Literally, I project that out onto the world and then I make it come true. I am the architect of my own reality. Literally.
Yeah. Yeah. And the takeaway from this discussion is that you get to choose, you know, you're responsible for this choice about your views. And at first that can feel like an immense burden. What if there's no maybe objective real story about this stuff and I have to choose how I see it? That's a lot of pressure at first.
It feels like it, yeah.
But God, I mean, isn't that so beautiful that you're not just stuck? You're not just stuck in one reality. Like you can choose to see how you see things and then just start making that reality yours. I mean, that's like true freedom.
The further you go with that, like you can take what you just said. It's funny you said the word God, because are you not, in a small sense, once you really start to step into this, do you not sort of become a small God in yourself? Like,
Yeah.
if what I just said is true, and don't just believe it, I'll give you a little fun example, everyone listening, of how you can go out and see if what I'm saying might have some truth to it. But if you really can embrace the idea that, like, oh shit, like I am the architect of my own reality, and not everything, but like most of it. You know, it's like stoicism in that, like, external events don't have power over me. I have power over my mind. Like, I can choose how I react to things. I can choose the story I tell about them. I can choose how I feel. I'm not going to let what happens out there dictate how I
It's not
feel.
static.
Yeah, that's my responsibility. If you step into that, you basically really do become like God in a small way. Like, you're the architect of your own reality. You get to say whether or not today is a good day or not. Isn't that a God? You get to choose what happens in your life and how you respond to it. You can't choose everything that happens, but how you respond to it. Is that not like a demigod or something? And when you really step into that, man, life becomes beautiful. It feels like a playground, and it feels like you've got like the paint brush in your hand and you get to paint the canvas with whatever you want, rather than life just sort of fucking you around.
Yep. It's all inside you.
100%.
Yeah. I like the quote that goes with this. It's from Brumi. It says, "You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop."
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, and that relates beautifully to like what we do in the coaching program. We're just basically trying to emphasize and bring out those parts of people, the positive parts, the parts that cut themselves off from love and joy a little bit less, you know, because it could go either way, right? Like, if it was the sort of program where we're just like, fuck you, don't be a little bitch, let's get after it. Those would be the parts that get emphasized, right?
Dude, I talk about this all
to
the
be
time.
clear,
like,
I thought when I first joined, I thought there was going to be some of that.
Bro, people join the coaching expecting, some of them even ask for it. Do you remember, he'd be comfortable with me saying his name because he has a YouTube channel. Do you remember Keaton? So when Keaton joined, he literally said to us, hey guys, I need you to yell at me and like call me a pussy and just yell at me and tell me to be successful. And we were like, look, we'll motivate you. We'll give you big yelling speeches where we yell at you and we go, come on, you can do this. Like, we believe in you, brother. Like, we will absolutely give you a big dose of like David Goggins, like, you can do this. But we're not going to yell at you. We're going to yell to you or with you. And we're not going to call you a pussy. Fuck no. Because that's focusing on the thing you don't want. Why would we do that? We're going to focus on like, you can do this thing you want to do. We're going to yell at you to do the thing that you're really excited about. I don't know if you remember, but he came to a group call. I don't know. It was like 2 months into the coaching. And he was basically like, I never expected that the coaching would feel like this, but for the first time in my life, I actually feel like I'm okay. Like, for the first time in my fucking life. And this is like a guy in his like mid or late, I think he's in his late 20s. And he's like, this is the first time I've ever felt okay in my life. Ever. I want more of this. And then he ended up coming back and staying in the coaching program for even longer. And I remember he said to me quite clearly, look, I'm signing up for a second round of coaching because like he took a long break and then he came back for a second round. And he was like, I'm signing up for a second round because you guys make me feel okay. And like, you make me feel like I might always be okay. And this might be the first time that I can achieve all the goals while feeling happy, rather than being this having this deep sense of anger and frustration and rage inside me. He's a very like angry, like masculine man.
And it's a cool example too, because when Keaton initially joined coaching, he was already like quite accomplished by conventional standards. Yeah, you know, successful business, successful relationship, you know, successful YouTube channel, all these things. So yeah, it was cool coming from him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of in the way that you choose to emphasize these things in yourself. Like, you can wake up feeling shit, but you ultimately in the back of your head, you know, it's a choice. You know, it's a choice.
It's a choice what you do with that feeling. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Feel that
what
feeling.
You do with it.
I feel shit. I feel shit, but I'm going to take some baby steps towards happiness today. Cool. Rather than I feel shit, so therefore I shouldn't do anything. What's the point? It's not going to work.
Mhm. Yeah, and with coaching, like you're always very careful to, someone will list out 15 things that they consider like a negative things, and you're very careful to find a positive sliver there always. I appreciate that. It's
100%. Yeah.
it's definitely worked.
Yeah. It's like, let's focus on the positive. People will do that in YouTube comments too. They'll write like a big paragraph about like, my life sucks. This is awful, blah, blah, blah. And I'll be like, hey, I love that you opened up. So there's one positive. Look how
Mhm.
fucking courageous you are. There's another positive, right? What's one baby step of action that you can take right now to move towards what you want? I'm very, very, very quick. I mean, it's one of my biggest like cheat codes in coaching. I had it from the very, like I did it from the very start of coaching where I was like, okay, what is one step that you can take right now? Like, I understand all of your problems. Believe me, I get it. But how can we start moving towards the things that we want? That's called time to action. Like, how much time does it take before you start taking action? And a lot of therapy and psychology, which is like beautiful. Therapy and psychology helped me a lot. But a lot of therapists and psychologists do like what's called talk therapy based on like very little action. So it's like, let's just sit here for an hour and talk. And that can be incredibly therapeutic, like obviously. Otherwise, therapy and counseling wouldn't exist. If it didn't work, it probably wouldn't exist to the level that it does. But I like to have a really low time to action within like a matter of like a minute or 30 seconds. Like, you write all this stuff that you're unhappy about, all of this negative stuff. Cool. Within the next minute, what can you do to start working towards your goals? And it's like, whoa, within the next minute, bro, I thought I was going to complain at you for the next like 6 weeks, and we were going to talk about how much this sucks, and you were going to feel sorry for me, and I was going to feel sorry for myself. I don't know if I'm ready for action. And it's like, okay, well, what's a tiny little baby step that you can take right now? I don't know if I can take any baby step. Like, I've been procrastinating for my entire life. Like, I don't know how to take action. Tell me one thing you can do right now. Well, fuck. Okay, I guess I could go outside for a walk for 5 minutes to start losing weight. Cool. Go outside, reply once you've done that. And then 10 minutes later, they'll post in the group, in the coaching group, and they'll go, okay, I did that. And I'll go, great. What's another baby step you can take right now? And then they'll do that. And they do a couple of these. And these are only tiny little baby steps. They'll do those and they'll go, holy fuck. Like, I just took three steps of action within like 30 minutes. Like, holy shit, maybe I do have the power to just focus on the positive and take some action and do something. So you'll
Yeah,
see
and
me
it's like
do that. Yeah, go.
yeah, it's like the stuff I was talking about in the beginning. It doesn't even almost seem relevant 3 steps later. I'm asking
The stuff
completely
that I
different
was worried about.
questions.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, I
Yeah,
have to like
dude.
figure out all these negative beliefs. Oh, I guess I'm already here now. Whoops, I didn't
Bro,
even notice.
zoom out even further. Like take the statement that you just said. So many people come to us, and you guys and girls will be posting in the YouTube comments with this exact same thing, but it's where you think you're broken. You think there's
Mm,
something wrong with you, and you think that you need to fix yourself before you can be happy. You
mm,
go like, I'm fucking broken, and that's why the opposite sex isn't interested in me. Or I'm fucking broken, that's why I'm unhappy. There's something fundamentally fucking wrong with me. But if I get you to focus on just taking one baby step right this second, which you'll hear me say that a lot in content, I'll be like, pause the video right now, do this. Where I will say, write a comment and write out these things. And I will like actually tell you to take action right this second. Like, I'll say, pause the fucking video right now and do this. I'm serious. Pause it now. Do it. If I get you to focus on taking action, holy crap. It's like all of that shit that you thought you had to fix first before you took action, that shit doesn't matter. Like, I'm too short, I'm broken, I'm unhappy, I went through childhood trauma, I was sexually abused, I'm miserable, I'm depressed. That's another one. I'm depressed, so I can't take action. It's like, beautiful, great. What's one baby step you can take right now? No, did you hear me? I'm depressed and suicidal. I love that. What's one step you can take right now? I mean, probably the best, most public example of this is, funnily enough, your sister who came on my YouTube channel. Her name's Thea. I did 2 interviews with her, and that was how I worked through things with her. And she's okay with me sharing all this because we talked about it in that podcast. But yeah, she was basically like, I'm depressed, I'm suicidal. And I was like, okay, what's one baby step you can take right now? And she was like, well, I can't, I'm depressed and suicidal. Okay, but what's like one thing you can do right now? And she just slowly started doing a few little baby steps. That's exactly how I worked through my own depression too. I had my beautiful parents who gave that to me. They were like, yeah, you're depressed. Yeah, you want to die. Yeah, you're suicidal. Go do the dishes. I can't do the dishes. Yes, you can. Go do the dishes. And just taking some action, even though you think there's something wrong with you, you think it won't work, you think it's impossible. I think that's probably one of the strongest things that we have in the coaching. And it's probably the strongest, like, cell of the coaching, so to speak. Is like, you'll come in no matter who you are and you will start taking action. And even if you think you can't, we will help you with that. I mean, that's two of the guys in the coaching program right now. Literally, that's what we're helping them with. You know, the guy who's the virgin and then the guy who just quit his job. It's like we're getting them to just focus on taking some baby steps every day. And they've already done, you know, like the guy who's the virgin literally said to me the other day, I've done more in the last like week than I had done in the 6 months before.
Yeah, that's the beauty of that sort of thinking, isn't it?
Yeah, there's always something you can do.
Mark, one of my favorite Mark Manson articles is the responsibility slash fault fallacy. And in there, he talks about, like, take the example of someone who was abused as a child. You know, it's not necessarily like, it's probably not your fault that that happened to you. You know, there are probably many external things that you just like popped into the circumstance that, like, you probably didn't choose that, in other words.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not your fault. However, like, the responsibility part is like, afterwards, how do you deal with yourself? How do you deal with the emotions? Like, are you just never able to smile or be kind to another person again? That part is the part to focus on, is what he talks about. You know, he says fault is basically past tense and responsibility is present, you know. And that's kind of how I like to think about it, is I'm sort of responsible for whether or not I smile at a stranger at the grocery store. You know, does like all the stuff that's going on in here prevent me from smiling at one person? That's
What
the
you're
part
talking
that,
about,
yeah, that I want to be responsible for.
what you're talking about is something that I talked about in a video. So you can just look on my channel, just type in the word map, like search on my channel for the word map. It's this one here, this one at the top. Accept where you currently are, then improve it, the map analogy. Basically, what I talk about in there is accept reality right now. You know, like I went through some childhood trauma, or this happened, or I'm depressed, or I'm short, or like whatever the reality of the situation is for you, accept it, then choose what you're going to do with it. I think a
Yeah.
lot of people get stuck in arguing with where they are right now. They're spending all of their energy frustrated by where they are right now. And it's beautiful to have frustration. Like that can be tremendously helpful and motivating, but don't sit there focusing on the frustration forever. Focus on the frustration for a little bit, then focus on start taking one little baby step. And everybody can take one baby step. Again, you can be suicidal. Literally, you want to fucking die. And there's one baby step that you can take. That baby step might be really fucking small. I'll walk to the kitchen. I will wash one cup. I will go back to bed and cry and want to die. It's like, cool, you washed one cup. You did something. So there's always something you can do. And sometimes that can require humility if it's a really small step, but there is always something that you can do. I think we start wrapping up, my friend. This feels like a beautiful discussion, and I'd love to put a pin in it and maybe come back to some of these topics again if you're up for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, go ahead.
What's one little baby step that someone could take if they're like, do you know what? I really wish that I could have a guy called Taylor and a guy called Andy help me with some of my problems. What's one baby step that they could take?
I believe there is very, very reasonably priced, depending on your viewpoint, calls that you offer, $200. And that's initially how I dipped my toe into that, was
Yeah,
I
you
just
did.
got on one of your calls. That's, you know, the first time I ever interacted with you, Andy. And the call was so much more than I expected. Like, it really was, man. And I'd been following your stuff, so I expected it to be cool to talk to you, but it really blew my mind. Like, I had this sort of limiting belief that, like, I didn't love myself, and it's just something I'd like heard from, you know, so many places that like, oh, the first step is to love yourself, right? And I was like, well, fuck, I don't love myself, so I already fucked up the first step. So everything else after that is fucked too. And I just was like stuck for years on the first step of like, I just have to figure out how to love myself. And in that very first $200 coaching call, you you just explained to me like that maybe this isn't dualistic. Maybe it's not just a spectrum of I do or I don't love myself. And you were just like, is that even true that you don't love yourself? What's like three loving things you do for yourself? And I was like, well, I mean, I put clothes on my body. That's kind of loving. Like I bathe my body. That's kind of loving for myself, you know? I I eat food. I guess that's like taking care of myself, you know? And it's like just the simplest stuff. And it's like what we said earlier. Like I just opened that door to the possibility.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was like, I remember in that initial call, I was like, holy shit, dude. Like you just changed my whole life. And you really did. Like looking back on that moment, it sounds silly. That genuinely changed my whole life. And you kind of just looked up and you were like, what? It was almost like you weren't even trying. You were like, oh, I was just like doing the Byron Katie thing. And I was like, what? What do you mean? You just like changed my whole life casually with zero effort on your part? What are you talking about?
But that happens, dude. I've had
That
people like
happens.
cry on those calls, like literally burst into tears and cry, and they're just like crying.
That
And they're
happens.
just like, holy crap, like I've been hanging on to this pain for the last like 30 years and you just let it all go. And it's like, it's these tiny little mindset tweaks that can just, like you said, open the door to like, holy shit, have I believed this thought for the last like 10 years? And
Yeah.
maybe it's not that it wasn't true, but like maybe there's a different lens that I could have viewed it under.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm missing some information. Maybe I didn't have the whole picture and I thought I was telling the full story, but maybe I wasn't. Maybe I was missing something. It's that little nugget of information.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of this kind of work, getting to do it with other people. And that's the
Hmm.
beauty of, including other people in your journey, not trying to do it all by yourself. It's like what seems like an insurmountable mountain for you with the help of another person can just be
Yeah.
it can almost be like for you it just seemed like it was nothing. It was like pouring your coffee level of effort. It was like nothing. And it wasn't a big deal. I know that. Um and it meant so much to me. So yeah, to sum it all up, if anyone wants to just kind of dip their toe and see if they might be able to get anything out of this, I think jump on one of those $200 calls with Andy.
Amazing. I would love to sit down with anybody that wants to sit down with me. Any problems that you have, any goals that you have, let's freaking do it. I appreciate you coming on, man. This was a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
I
I
enjoyed
think
this.
you had like three more topics and we we didn't even get to them because we just got in the weeds. It was fun.
Yeah, I liked it like that. I told you it was going to be like that when we sit down. We'll probably go off on a big tangent, but yeah, man, I appreciate you being here. Much love. I'll see you
Appreciate
in the
you,
coaching
Andy.
program.